The January wind bit through Milan's streets like a living thing, merciless and cold. I pressed myself against the brick wall of the abandoned train station, watching my breath form clouds in the freezing air. My fingers were numb around the paper cup that held today's earnings, 4.37 in coins that clinked softly with each shiver that ran through my body. 3 months sleeping rough had taught me to count every cent, to memorize the weight of survival in my palm. I was supposed to be invisible. That was the first rule of homelessness. Don't make eye contact, don't cause trouble, don't exist loudly enough for anyone to notice. But then I heard the screams. Across Via Verdi, the morning chaos erupted into something sharper. Car horns blared, photographers shouted, and through the crowd, a small figure in an expensive navy coat broke free from the black-suited men chasing him, running directly into traffic. My body moved before my brain could stop it. I dropped the cup, coins scattering across the cobblestones like dropped prayers, and lunged forward, grabbing the child just as a delivery van swerved past us, its horn screaming. The boy crashed into my legs, small hands fisting in my threadbare coat, his entire body trembling against mine. "It's okay," I whispered, crouching down to his level, my own heart hammering. "You're safe now." He looked up at me with dark eyes too haunted for a child, tears streaking his pale cheeks. His lips moved once, twice, forming a single word that made the entire street fall silent. "Mom." The word hung in the air like something sacred and broken all at once. Before I could process what he'd said, the world shifted into sharp focus. The black-suited men surrounded us, hands reaching for weapons beneath their jackets. Camera flashes erupted from every direction, and then the crowd parted. A black Maserati screeched to a halt at the curb, its door opening before the car had fully stopped. He stepped out like a force of nature made flesh. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal coat that moved like liquid shadow, black gloves, eyes the color of storm clouds over the Adriatic. Even from 15 feet away, I felt the weight of his presence, the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself, because the air itself rearranged around him. Tiziano Longo. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew what he was. You didn't survive on the streets without learning to recognize danger in 1,000 different forms, and this man was danger distilled into human shape. His bodyguards moved to surround us, but he held up one gloved hand, a simple gesture that froze everyone in place. He walked forward slowly, deliberately, his gaze never leaving mine. When he reached us, he didn't pull his son away. Instead, he knelt on the cold pavement in his expensive suit, utterly unconcerned with the crowd or the cameras or anything except the child clinging to my waist. "Luca," he said quietly, and even his voice had weight, velvet wrapped around steel. "Are you hurt?" The boy, Luca, shook his head but didn't let go of me. For the first time, those storm cloud eyes lifted to mine. Up close, they were worse than I'd imagined. Not cruel, but calculating, assessing. Seeing through every defense I'd built in 3 months of invisibility. "Who are you?" he asked, and it wasn't a question. It was a command wrapped in civilized language. "Nobody," I managed, my voice rough from disuse. He ran into traffic. I couldn't." "Your name?" The authority in those 2 words made me answer before I could think better of it. Vanessa Stotts." Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. He studied me for another long moment. My dirty coat, my tangled hair, the paper cup still rolling in the gutter behind me, spilling its meager contents across the street. Then he looked down at his son, who still hadn't released his death grip on my coat. "Luca, he said again, softer this time. Let go. No. The boy's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of absolute conviction. She stays. Like Mama. The man's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. When he stood, he moved with controlled precision, pulling a phone from his coat. He spoke in rapid Italian to someone on the other end, too fast for me to follow with my broken understanding of the language. He ended the call and looked at me again. Get in the car. What? I stepped back instinctively, but Luca's grip held me in place. I can't. That wasn't a request, Miss Stotts. He gestured to the Maserati, where one of his men had already opened the rear door. My son seems to believe you're important. I intend to find out why. Before I could protest, before I could run or fight or do anything except stand there like a deer in headlights, his men moved. Not roughly, there was no violence in their touch, but with absolute efficiency. One retrieved my backpack from against the wall where I'd left it. Another guided me gently but firmly toward the car. Luca walked beside me, his hand now gripping mine, looking up at me with something like hope. And Tiziano Longo watched it all with eyes that promised answers would be extracted, one way or another. Within the hour, I found myself somewhere I'd never imagined. The Longo estate, gold-lit parlors, marble floors, corridors that echoed with old money and older secrets. I sat in a velvet chair that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire life, trembling beneath the weight of Tiziano Longo's unreadable stare. He sat across from me, perfectly still, gloved hands steepled beneath his chin. Who are you, Miss Stotts? He finally asked, his voice soft as silk and sharp as broken glass. And why did my son call you Mother? I never meant to end up on Milan streets. 6 months earlier, I'd been Vanessa Stotts, student teacher with a promising future. But grief has a way of rewriting your story whether you consent to the edits or not. My mother died on a Tuesday. The hospital bills arrived on a Thursday. By the following month, I'd lost my apartment, my job, and every safety net I'd ever known. Milan had been her favorite city, the place she'd worked as a young seamstress before I was born, before life got complicated. So when I had nothing left, I came here. Looking for what, I couldn't say. Ghosts, maybe. Or just a place where my failure felt less personal. I never expected to find a 5-year-old boy who looked at me like I was the answer to a prayer I didn't know he'd been praying. And I definitely never expected his father, cold, calculating, wrapped in violence and velvet, to look at me like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve, even if solving me meant tearing apart everything I'd worked so hard to keep hidden. The interrogation lasted 2 hours. Tiziano Longo didn't raise his voice once. He didn't need to. Every question came wrapped in that same velvet and steel tone, each one designed to peel back another layer of my life until there was nothing left to hide. Where was I born? Boston. Why did I come to Milan? My mother loved it here. What happened to her? Cancer. The bills? Unpaid. My apartment? Lost. My job? Gone. He listened with the same unreadable expression, occasionally making notes on a tablet his assistant, a sharp-eyed man named Marco Gianni, slid across the table. Marco watched me like I was a stain on his employer's perfect world. Criminal record? Tiziano asked. No. Drug use? No. Marco leaned forward, his voice clipped. Mr. Longo, with all respect, this is absurd. The woman is clearly unsuitable, unvetted, a security risk. She needs to be removed immediately. Noted. Tiziano stood buttoning his suit jacket. Your objection is on record. Now leave us. Sir, I said leave. The command made even me flinch. Marco stood stiffly, shot me a look that promised this wasn't over, and left. The door clicked shut, and suddenly the massive room felt smaller, more intimate. Tiziano walked to the window overlooking the estate's gardens. My son hasn't eaten a full meal in 3 days. He hasn't slept through the night in 5 years. 30 nannies, Miss Stotts. 30 trained professionals with impeccable credentials. He turned, afternoon light cutting across his face. Some quit within a week, some lasted months, and then something would happen. A nightmare, a broken dish, a song on the radio, and Luca would fracture, screaming, inconsolable. What happened to his mother? The question hung in the air. Isabella died when Luca was 3. He was in the room when it happened. Tiziano's expression could have been carved from marble. He hasn't been the same since. I'm sorry, I whispered. Sorry doesn't help him sleep. Sorry doesn't make him eat. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. Today you calmed him. In the car, he held your hand without protest. Right now, he's eating lunch because you're still here. He crossed the room, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. 1 week. You stay here as Luca's caretaker, supervised at all times, security monitoring every room. At the end of 7 days, you'll receive 5,000 euros, enough to start over somewhere safe. My breath caught. 5,000 euros. And if I say no? My driver takes you anywhere in the city. No questions, no consequences. His eyes searched mine. But Luca will ask for you. He'll wait by the window. He'll stop eating again. It wasn't a threat. Somehow that made it worse. Why me? I don't think anything, Miss Stotts. I deal in facts. He gestured toward the hallway, where I could hear distant child's laughter. But my son believes you're different, and right now, I'm desperate enough to find out if he's right. I should have said no. Every survival instinct screamed at me to walk away, but then I heard Luca laugh again, free and genuine and alive. 1 week, I heard myself say, but I want the money paid daily, in installments, and I want it in writing. For the first time, Tiziano Longo smiled. Small, barely there, but it transformed his face. You're not unsuitable. You're a survivor. Within minutes, Marco returned with a contract. I read every word twice. Standard employment agreement, non-disclosure clause, payment terms as requested. My hand trembled as I signed, Vanessa Stotts. Tiziano slid an envelope across the table. First installment, 715 euros. I stared at more money than I'd held in months. There are rules, he said. You don't leave the estate without permission. You don't discuss this family with anyone. You follow security protocols exactly. And if Luca is ever in danger, you call for help immediately. Clear? Crystal. Good. He gestured toward the door, where a woman in her 60s appeared, wearing a neat gray dress. Signora Lella will show you to your quarters. Signora Lella led me through endless corridors of marble and gold. She didn't speak until we reached a grand staircase. 30 nannies before you, she said quietly, her English thick with Italian accent. Some lasted days, some weeks. One made it 3 months before she ran screaming from the villa in the middle of the night. A chill ran down my spine. What happened? She swore she'd seen things, heard things. The little one's mother, Isabella's ghost walking the halls. Signora Lella stopped at a door near the end of the hallway. I don't believe in ghosts, Miss Stotts, but I believe in grief, and this house has enough of it to haunt anyone. She opened the door to reveal a bedroom larger than my entire Boston apartment. 4-poster bed, ensuite bathroom, French doors to a private balcony. Beautiful. Perfect. and it felt like a cage wrapped in silk. "Dinner is at 7 in the nursery with the young master," Signora Lella said, setting a key on the dresser. "If you need anything, dial 0. She paused at the door. "A word of advice? Whatever you think you know about this family, you know nothing. Keep your head down, do your job, take your money, and when the week is over, leave and don't look back." Before I could respond, she was gone. I stood in that beautiful room, trying to convince myself I hadn't just made the worst decision of my life. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Miss Vanessa?" I opened the door to find Luca standing in the hallway, a stuffed lion clutched under one arm, his dark eyes wide and hopeful. "They said you're staying. For real?" I crouched to his level. "For 1 week. Is that okay?" He nodded, then wrapped his arm around my neck in a fierce hug. "Don't leave," he breathed against my shoulder. "They always leave." And in that moment, with a 5-year-old's desperation pressed against my heart and a mansion full of secrets surrounding us both, I realized Signora Lella was right. I'd walked into something far deeper than I could possibly understand. But for 1 week at least, I could be what this broken child needed, even if it meant drowning in the process. That first night, I didn't sleep. Part of it was the bed. Too soft, too large, too foreign after months of concrete and cardboard. But mostly, it was the sounds. At midnight, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside my door. Slow, deliberate, stopping just at my threshold. I held my breath, waiting for a knock that never came. When I finally checked, the hallway was empty. At 2 a.m., I heard music. Faint and distant, like someone had left a radio playing several rooms away. A lullaby, delicate and haunting, weaving through the walls like smoke. I knew that song. My mother used to hum it while she worked, her needle flashing through fabric in our tiny Boston apartment. I'd asked her once where she'd learned it, and she'd gotten that faraway look she sometimes had when thinking about Italy. "An old friend taught me," was all she'd said. Hearing it now, in this place, made my skin prickle. I pulled on the robe Signora Lella had left and stepped into the hallway. The music was clearer now, coming from deeper in the villa. I followed it past closed doors and portraits of stern-faced Longos, their painted eyes tracking my movement. The melody led me to a door slightly ajar, warm light spilling through. Luca's nursery. I pushed it open quietly. The room was enormous, decorated in soft blues and creams, shelves overflowing with untouched toys, a window seat overlooking the gardens, and in the corner, on a small table beside Luca's bed, a music box, playing by itself. The porcelain ballerina turned slowly while the lullaby filled the room. I crossed to it and saw the key on the table beside it, unwound, motionless. It does that sometimes. I spun around. Luca sat up in bed, the stuffed lion clutched to his chest, watching me with those 2 old eyes. "Sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to wake you." I moved to his bedside. "The music woke me. I wanted to make sure you were okay." "Mama's song," he said simply. "She plays it when she visits." The temperature seemed to drop. "Your mama visits?" Luca nodded, pointing to the window seat. "She sits there. Sometimes she reads to me. Sometimes she just watches." His voice dropped to a whisper. "The other ladies got scared when they saw her, but she's not scary. She's sad." I sat carefully on the edge of his bed, trying to keep my expression neutral. "What does she look like when she visits?" "Pretty, like the picture." He reached under his pillow and pulled out a photograph, its edges worn from handling. The woman in the photo took my breath away. Isabella Longo stood in a garden, sunlight catching in dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. She wore a simple white dress and held a baby against her chest, but it was her face that made my blood run cold. She looked like me, not identical, but close enough that we could have been sisters. The same dark eyes, the same straight nose, the same shape to our lips. "She looks like you," Luca said. "That's why I called you Mama, in the street. I thought maybe she came back." I pulled him into my arms. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry. I'm not her." "I know," he mumbled against my shoulder, "but you feel the same. Warm, safe." The music box wound down, the last notes fading into silence. In the quiet, I heard it. A soft sigh, like someone exhaling in relief. Luca didn't react. He was already falling back asleep. I laid him down gently and placed the photograph on his nightstand. As I turned to leave, my gaze caught on something I hadn't noticed before. On the wall beside the window seat hung a small embroidered piece in a simple frame. A garden scene with a woman and child beneath a willow tree. In the corner, barely visible, Isle Isabella Longo. And beneath that, in smaller letters, "Made with fabric from Stotts Tailoring, Boston." My mother's business. The room tilted. I gripped the door frame as the pieces started falling into place. My mother had worked for the Longo family. Isabella had commissioned work from her. They'd known each other. "You should be sleeping, Miss Stotts." I jumped. Tiziano stood in the hallway, still dressed despite the late hour. His tie was loosened, his jacket gone. The first sign of disorder I'd seen in him. "The music woke me," I said. "I wanted to check on Luca." His gaze moved past me to his sleeping son, something softening in his expression. The music box plays on its own sometimes. A mechanical fault. I should have it removed. Luca says his mother plays it. Tiziano's jaw tightened. Luca is 5 years old and processing trauma. He doesn't understand that she's gone. Or maybe you don't understand that she's still here. The words came out before I could stop them. Tiziano's eyes snapped to mine, dangerous and dark. "Careful, Miss Stotts. That embroidery in there says it was made with fabric from my mother's shop." I stepped closer. "You said Isabella died 5 years ago. My mother worked for your family decades ago. What's the connection?" For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then, surprisingly, he spoke. "Your mother and Isabella were friends, close friends, when they were younger. Before Isabella married into this family, before your mother left Italy." He leaned against the door frame, suddenly looking tired. "When Isabella became pregnant, she tracked your mother down, commissioned a dozen pieces, said she wanted her child surrounded by love, even if it was stitched into blankets." The ache in my chest threatened to overwhelm me. "My mother never mentioned her. This family has a way of consuming the people who love us. Your mother was smart to leave when she did. Then why did Isabella stay?" "Because she loved me." The words seemed to cost him something. "And because sometimes love makes us foolish." We stood in the dim hallway, two people bound by ghosts and grief. "The lullaby," I said softly. "Where does it come from?" "Isabella wrote it when she was pregnant with Luca. She said the melody came to her in dreams. My mother sang that same song to me." His gaze sharpened. "That's impossible." "Is it?" I gestured to the nursery. "Nothing about this situation is possible, and yet here we are." He studied me, weighing risks and benefits, trying to solve a puzzle that refused to make sense. "Get some sleep, Miss Stotts. Luca will want you fresh in the morning." He turned to leave, then paused. "And, Miss Stotts, if the music plays again, let it. Fighting ghosts only gives them power. Then he was gone, leaving me with more questions than answers. I returned to my room, but sleep never came. I sat by the window watching dawn break over the estate, wondering what my mother would say if she could see me now, living in the house she'd fled, caring for the child of her lost friend, falling into the orbit of a man whose darkness was matched only by his desperate love for his son. Somewhere in the villa, the music box began to play again, and this time I let myself hum along. Morning arrived with a soft knock and Signora Lella's voice through the door. "Breakfast in 30 minutes, Miss Stotts. The young master is already awake." I dragged myself from the window seat where I'd finally dozed off just before dawn, my body aching from the uncomfortable position. The face in the bathroom mirror looked as haunted as I felt. Dark circles under my eyes, hair tangled, skin pale from exhaustion. But there was no time for self-pity. I had a job to do. 20 minutes later, I entered the breakfast room to find Luca already seated at a small table by the window, swinging his legs and humming, the same lullaby from last night. "Miss Vanessa." His face lit up when he saw me. "Signora Lella made chocolate pastries. Your favorite. She said." I glanced at the housekeeper, who was arranging dishes on the sideboard. She didn't meet my eyes. "How did you know?" I asked quietly. "Your mother mentioned it once. Years ago." Signora Lella's voice was carefully neutral. "She said her daughter would eat nothing but chocolate pastries for a week straight when she was small." Another thread connecting me to this house. Another impossible coincidence. I sat beside Luca, accepting the coffee Signora Lella poured, strong and black, the way I'd learned to take it when I couldn't afford milk. We ate in comfortable silence, Luca chattering about his stuffed lion and a dream he'd had about flying. For a moment it felt almost normal, almost safe. Then Tiziano entered. He looked immaculate again, all evidence of last night's exhaustion erased behind a fresh suit and that controlled expression. But when his eyes met mine, I saw the question there, the same one I'd been asking myself all night. "What are we doing?" "Luca, go with Signora Lella to wash up," he said, his voice gentle with his son. "I need to speak with Miss Stotts." Luca hesitated, his small hand finding mine under the table. "She's not leaving?" "No, Piccolo. Just a conversation." Only when Luca was gone did Tiziano sit across from me, sliding an envelope across the table. "Second installment, as agreed." I took it without counting. "Thank you. I've been thinking about our arrangement." He poured himself coffee with precise movements. "1 week isn't enough. Not for Luca. He's already attached to you in a way I haven't seen since Isabella died." My stomach tightened. "We agreed to 1 week. I'm proposing an extension. 2 more weeks. Triple the daily rate." He studied me over the rim of his cup. "That's over 15,000 euros total, Miss Stotts. Enough to start over anywhere you want." The amount made my head spin. 15,000 euros. I could get an apartment, finish my degree, build the life I'd lost. Everything I'd dreamed of while sleeping in train stations. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just more of the same. Be present for Luca, follow the rules, help him heal." He paused. "And perhaps help me understand the connection between your mother and my wife." There it was. The real reason. "I don't know anything more than you do," I said carefully. "My mother never talked about her time here. I didn't even know she'd worked for your family until yesterday. But you know the lullaby? You look like Isabella. Your mother's work is hanging in my son's nursery." He leaned forward slightly. I don't believe in coincidences, Miss Stotts, and I don't believe in ghosts. But I believe something brought you to that street at the exact moment my son needed you. So you want me to stay and be what? Bait? To see if more impossible things happen? I want you to stay because my son is eating, sleeping, and speaking for the first time in months. Everything else is secondary. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. But yes, I want answers, and I think you do too. He was right. I hated that he was right. 3 weeks total, I said. 21 days. Then I walk away, and you don't try to find me or contact me again. Agreed. He pulled out his phone. I'll have Marco draw up a new contract. Not Marco. The words came out sharper than I intended. Someone else. Marco doesn't want me here. Tiziano's expression darkened. Marco's concerns are noted and irrelevant, but if it makes you more comfortable, I'll use an outside attorney. It does. He made a call in rapid Italian, then ended it and stood. Done. The contract will be ready by this afternoon. He paused at the door. One more thing, Miss Stotts. Last night you asked if I understood that Isabella might still be here. I don't believe in hauntings. But I do believe in unfinished business. What kind of unfinished business? The kind that gets people killed. His voice was ice. Isabella didn't die peacefully, and the truth of what happened that night is buried deeper than you can imagine. If you're going to stay in this house, you need to understand. Some doors are closed for a reason. Before I could ask what he meant, he was gone. That night, the haunting intensified. I woke to the sound of footsteps again, but this time they didn't stop at my door. They continued past, heading toward Luca's nursery. I grabbed my robe and followed. The nursery door stood open. Inside, the music box played its lonely melody, and Luca sat up in bed, staring at the window seat. She's here, he whispered when I entered. Mama's here. I looked at the window seat. Empty. But the cushion was compressed, as if someone had just been sitting there. And in the moonlight, I could swear I saw the faint outline of a hand against the glass. What does she want, sweetheart? She wants you to know. Luca's voice was strange, distant. She wants you to find it. Find what? The truth. In the garden. Where she left it. His eyes focused on me, suddenly his own again. She says thank you for coming. She says Mama Stotts would be proud. The room spun. Luca, how do you know my mother's name? She told me. He pointed at the window seat. She's telling me right now. I crossed to the window, my heart hammering. The impression on the cushion was fading, the outline on the glass disappearing like breath. Isabella, I whispered to the empty air. If you're here, if you can hear me, I need more than riddles. I need answers. The music box's melody shifted, hitting a wrong note, then another. The porcelain ballerina stuttered in her rotation, and on the windowsill, moisture began to form. Not condensation, but letters traced by an invisible finger. Careful. Then, below it, Marco. The temperature plummeted. My breath came out in clouds, and from somewhere distant in the villa, I heard a door slam. Luca whimpered, and I rushed to his bed, pulling him into my arms. It's okay, baby. It's okay. She's scared, he said against my shoulder. She's scared for you. I held him until he fell back asleep, but I couldn't shake the chill that had settled into my bones. The warning on the window had already faded, but I'd seen it. Known it was real. Isabella Longo was haunting this house, and she was trying to protect me from something, someone inside it. When I finally returned to my room, I found another envelope slipped under my door. Not from Tiziano. The handwriting was different, rougher. Inside was a single photograph. My mother, young and smiling, standing beside a teenage Isabella in a garden. On the back, written in faded ink, "Some friendships are worth dying for. Some secrets are worth keeping. Leave while you still can." A friend. I sat on the bed, clutching the photograph, and realized that 3 weeks might not be nearly enough time to uncover the truth. Or it might be exactly enough time to get me killed. The photograph burned in my pocket all through breakfast. I kept glancing at Luca, wondering if he'd mentioned last night's visitation, but he was absorbed in his scrambled eggs, chattering about wanting to feed the ducks in the garden pond. Tiziano appeared briefly, immaculate as always, to hand me the revised contract. Our fingers brushed during the exchange, and for a moment his gaze held mine. Searching, questioning, almost concerned. "You look tired, Miss Stotts." "I'm fine." Liar. But he said it without heat. "If the arrangements aren't suitable, they're fine. Everything's fine." I signed the contract quickly before I could second-guess myself. 3 weeks, 15,000 euros, answers about my mother, and warnings written in condensation by a dead woman. After Tiziano left for whatever mysterious business occupied his days, I took Luca to the gardens as promised. While he threw bread to the ducks, I studied the grounds, looking for anything that matched the garden in the photograph. "Miss Vanessa, you're not watching." "Sorry, sweetheart." I crouched beside him. "Luca, do you know if there are other gardens? Maybe older ones with a willow tree?" His face scrunched in thought. "The old garden, past the maze. Papa says we're not supposed to go there." Of course he did. "Why not?" "That's where Mama died." The words hung in the spring air, delicate and terrible. "I see." I kept my voice gentle. "Well, we should definitely stay here then." But even as we fed the ducks, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The old garden, where Isabella died, where she'd left something, according to her ghost, if I believed what Luca had said. That afternoon, while Luca napped, I went searching. I found Signora Lella in the laundry room, folding towels with military precision. "I need to ask you about something," I said, closing the door behind me. Her hands stilled. "If this is about last night's disturbances, it's about my mother and Isabella." I pulled out the photograph that had been slipped under my door. "Someone left this for me, with a warning to leave." Signora Lella's face went pale. She took the photograph with trembling fingers, staring at the 2 young women smiling in the garden. "Madonna," she whispered, "I took this picture 30 years ago, maybe more, before Isabella was even engaged, when your mother still worked here. Tell me what happened, please. Why did my mother leave?" The housekeeper sank onto a stool, still clutching the photograph. "Your mother, Elena. Her name was Elena. She came to work as a seamstress when she was barely 20. Isabella was 16, rebellious, lonely in this big house. They became friends, close as sisters." She looked up at me, and I saw tears in her weathered eyes. When Isabella's father started embezzling from the family's charity foundation, Elena discovered it. She found the ledgers, saw the missing money meant for orphanages and hospitals. She confronted him. My stomach clenched. And he threatened to have her deported. Worse. This family, they have ways of making problems disappear, Miss Stotts. Your mother fled in the night, left everything behind, including Isabella. They never spoke again. But the embroidery in Luca's room, Isabella tracked her down years later when she was pregnant, begged for forgiveness, sent money, commissioned the work as a peace offering. Signora Lella wiped her eyes. Your mother sent the pieces but never replied to Isabella's letters. The guilt of leaving her friend in this house with that family ate at her until she died. The pieces were falling into place, sharp and cutting. Isabella's father. He's dead now? 10 years gone. But the rot he started never left. She handed back the photograph. That warning you received? Take it seriously. Someone in this house doesn't want the past disturbed. Marco. Signora Lella's silence was answer enough. That evening, I waited until the house grew quiet, until I could hear Tiziano's office door close, his voice carrying down the hallway in a phone conversation. Until Luca was deeply asleep, his stuffed lion clutched tight. Then I slipped out through the garden doors. The moon was nearly full, casting silver light across the manicured lawns. I followed the stone path past the duck pond toward the looming shadow of the hedge maze. Beyond it, barely visible, was an iron gate. The old garden. The gate wasn't locked. It creaked open on rusted hinges, revealing what had once been beautiful but now lay in elegant decay. Overgrown roses climbed crumbling trellises. Weeds pushed through cracked pathways, and in the center stood a massive willow tree, its branches hanging like a curtain around a small stone bench. This was the garden from the photograph. I was sure of it. I approached the willow slowly, pushing through its trailing branches into the hidden space beneath. The bench was weathered but solid, and carved into its surface, nearly invisible with age, were 2 sets of initials, E.S. plus I.L., Elena Stotts and Isabella Longo. My mother had sat here, had carved her name next to her friend's in a promise of forever that neither of them kept. I ran my fingers over the letters, and something shifted beneath the bench, a loose stone in the foundation. I knelt, prying it free, and found a gap behind it. Inside was a metal box, rusted at the edges but intact. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, tied with ribbon. The top envelope was addressed in my mother's handwriting. For Isabella, if you still want to understand. I opened it carefully, unfolding pages that crackled with age. Dearest Isabella, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I can't stay in this house, knowing what your father is doing, knowing that the money meant for dying children is lining his pockets while he plays the philanthropist. But I want you to know, I saw the ledgers. I made copies. I hid them where he'll never find them, insurance against the day when the truth might matter. If anything happens to you, if you ever need proof of what this family really is, look for the red journal in the place where we first became sisters. You'll know where. I'm sorry I have to leave you. I'm sorry I'm not brave enough to fight this battle beside you. But I love you. Always. Elena. I sat back, my heart pounding. My mother had hidden evidence. Evidence that could destroy the Longo family's reputation. Evidence that Isabella had apparently never found. Or had she? Beautiful night for grave robbing. I spun around. Marco Gianni stood at the edge of the willow's canopy, a gun held loosely in his right hand. I could say I'm disappointed, Miss Stotts, but honestly, he smiled, cold and reptilian. I expected this. You're your mother's daughter, after all. Couldn't resist meddling in things that don't concern you. I stood slowly, clutching the letters. Tiziano knows I'm here. Tiziano is on a conference call with Tokyo. He'll be occupied for at least an hour. Marco stepped closer. Plenty of time for you to have a tragic accident. Such a shame. The homeless woman who seduced her way into the family's confidence, only to fall to her death in the old garden, where Isabella herself died, coincidentally. My blood went cold. You killed her. I protected this family. Isabella found something she shouldn't have. Started asking questions about her father's charity work, about missing funds from 30 years ago. She was going to destroy everything the Longos had built, all over money that was already spent and forgotten. So you murdered her, in front of her son. An unfortunate necessity. The boy wasn't supposed to be there. He raised the gun. I've cleaned up messes for this family for 20 years, Miss Stotts. You're just one more. I heard it then, the rustle of willow branches, though no wind blew. The temperature dropped, and Marco's confident expression flickered. What? The bench beside me shifted. The letters in my hand flew from my grasp, scattering around Marco's feet. The gun in his hand froze, his finger unable to pull the trigger, his face contorting with effort. And I saw her. Isabella Longo, translucent in the moonlight, stood between us. Her hand was outstretched toward Marco, her expression full of a rage that transcended death. "Run," she said, and her voice was wind and memory and vengeance. "Run, Vanessa." I ran. I crashed through the garden doors, gasping for breath, the letters clutched against my chest. Behind me, I heard Marco shouting. Whether at me or at Isabella's ghost, I couldn't tell. The villa was dark except for a light from Tiziano's office. I ran toward it, my feet slipping on marble, my heart threatening to burst from my ribs. I slammed through his office door without knocking. Tiziano looked up from his desk, phone still pressed to his ear. Whatever he saw in my face made him immediately end the call. "Miss Stotts, what?" "Marco killed Isabella." The words tumbled out in a rush. "He's in the old garden right now. He had a gun. He was going to kill me. My mother hid evidence about Isabella's father embezzling from the charity, and Isabella found it, and Marco killed her to protect the family and—" "Slow down." He was around the desk in an instant, hands on my shoulders steadying me. "Start from the beginning." So I did. The photograph under my door. Signora Lella's story. The letters in the garden. Marco's confession. I showed him the letters, my hands still shaking. His expression grew darker with each word I spoke. When I finished, he made a phone call in rapid Italian, his voice like frozen steel. Then he looked at me. "You're sure about what he said? That he killed Isabella?" He admitted it. He said she found something about her father's charity work, that she was asking questions that would destroy the family. He said killing her was necessary. Tiziano's jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle jumping. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done 5 years ago." His eyes were dark storms. "Find the truth." He strode toward the door, then paused. "The letters. May I?" I handed them over, watching as he scanned my mother's words. Something cracked in his expression. Grief, rage, or perhaps just the weight of finally understanding. "Your mother was brave," he said quietly, "and Isabella died trying to finish what she started." Then he was gone, and I was alone with the instruction to lock the door. Instead, I waited exactly 30 seconds and followed. I found them in the old garden. Tiziano had Marco pinned against the willow tree, one hand wrapped around his throat, the other holding the gun Marco had pointed at me. 5 years, Tiziano said, his voice barely above a whisper, but more terrifying than any shout. 5 years I trusted you, let you help raise my son, watched you play the loyal advisor while you were the monster who made him an orphan. Marco's face was purple, his feet barely touching the ground. Tiziano, please, I did it for you, for the family. She was going to destroy everything. She was my wife. The roar echoed through the garden. She was the mother of my child, and you took her from us. She was a liability, like the homeless whore you've brought into our home, like anyone who gets too close to the truth. Marco's eyes found me in the shadows. You think you're safe with him? He's just like the rest of us. This family destroys everything it touches. I stepped forward into the moonlight. Then why did Isabella's ghost save me? Why is she still protecting this house if all you brought her was destruction? Both men froze, staring at me. She was here, I continued, my voice stronger now. When Marco was about to shoot me, she stopped him. I saw her. She spoke to me. She said to run. Madness, Marco spat. You're as crazy as... Thunder cracked overhead. The first drops of rain began to fall, fat and cold. And in the distance, I heard it. Sirens. Tiziano had called the police. Marco heard them too. His expression shifted from defiance to calculation. You'll never prove it. It's her word against mine. A homeless woman with everything to gain by... Not her word. Tiziano released him, stepping back. Your confession. Every word recorded. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. Marco's voice played back clearly. I protected this family. Isabella found something she shouldn't have. The blood drained from Marco's face. Did you really think, Tiziano said softly, that I would come here without insurance? That I wouldn't protect the woman who's given my son back his voice? The sirens grew louder. Blue lights flashed through the garden gates. Marco ran. He made it perhaps 20 feet before Tiziano caught him, taking him down with brutal efficiency. They struggled in the mud as rain began to pour in earnest, but Tiziano was younger, stronger, and fueled by 5 years of grief, transformed into rage. By the time the police arrived, Marco was unconscious, and Tiziano stood over him, rain streaming down his face, looking like a vengeful god. The next hours blurred together. Police statements, questions, the letters examined as evidence. Marco taken away in handcuffs, finally conscious and screaming about lawyers and false accusations. But the recording was clear, and when they searched Marco's apartment, they found Isabella's red journal, the evidence my mother had told her to look for. 30 years of embezzlement, carefully documented. Proof that Isabella had confronted Marco about continuing her father's crimes, using charity funds to launder money for the family's less legal enterprises. She died protecting that truth, and her ghost had waited 5 years for someone to finish what she started. Dawn was breaking when we finally returned to the villa. Tiziano went immediately to check on Luca, who'd slept through everything, protected by Signora Lella's fierce watch. I stood in the hallway, exhausted and rain-soaked, wondering if I should pack my things, if the deal still stood, if anything about this night had been real. Then I heard Luca scream. I ran to his nursery, Tiziano 2 steps ahead of me. We found him sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his face, but his expression wasn't one of fear. It was wonder. She said goodbye. He whispered, looking at the window seat. Mama said goodbye. She said she can rest now. She said thank you. The music box on the table began to play one final time. The lullaby filled the room, sweet and sad and perfect. And for just a moment I swear I saw her, Isabella, translucent as morning mist, sitting on the window seat with a smile on her face. She looked at Tiziano with love, at Luca with pride, at me with gratitude. Then she faded like smoke in sunlight, and the music box wound down to silence. Luca turned to me, his small face solemn. She said to tell you, Mama Stotts is proud, and she's waiting for you someday, but not soon. Not for a long, long time. I collapsed onto his bed, pulling him into my arms, and let the tears finally come. For my mother, for Isabella, for all the women who'd fought and sacrificed and loved fiercely enough to transcend death itself. Tiziano sat on Luca's other side, his hand finding mine across his son's small body. We stayed like that as dawn broke fully over the Longo estate. 3 broken people holding each other together, surrounded by the ghosts of the past finally laid to rest. Outside, the storm cleared. Inside, for the first time in 5 years, the villa felt at peace. And when Luca spoke again, his voice was clear and certain and free. "Can Miss Vanessa stay forever? Please, Papa." Tiziano's eyes met mine over our son's head. And yes, in that moment, Luca felt like ours, full of questions and possibilities and the terrifying hope of new beginnings. "We'll see, Piccolo," he said softly. "We'll see." But his hand tightened around mine, and I knew the answer was already yes. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange, suspended calm. Marco's arrest made headlines. Longo family consigliere arrested for murder, but Tiziano's lawyers kept our names out of the press. The investigation continued, evidence mounting, and slowly the truth of Isabella's death emerged from 5 years of carefully constructed lies. I should have felt relieved, safe even. Instead, I felt watched. It started small. Items in my room shifted. A book I'd left on the nightstand now on the desk, my robe hanging on the wrong hook. I told myself I was imagining it, that exhaustion was playing tricks on my mind. Then came the phone calls. The line would ring in my room at odd hours, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and when I answered, there was only breathing, heavy, deliberate. "Wrong number," Signora Lella said when I mentioned it. But her eyes told a different story. Tiziano noticed the shadows under my eyes at breakfast one morning. "You're not sleeping." "Bad dreams," I lied, watching Luca color at the small table by the window. "Nothing serious." His gaze held mine, skeptical but not pushing. We'd maintained a careful distance since that night in Luca's nursery, professional, courteous, dancing around the electricity that sparked whenever our hands accidentally touched. "Marco had associates," he said quietly, pouring coffee. "People loyal to him, who believed he was protecting the family. My security team is investigating, but until we're certain everyone's been identified. You think someone's still here, in the house. I think caution is wise." He set down the coffee pot with deliberate care. "If anything else happens, anything that makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately." I nodded, but didn't mention the breathing on the phone. Didn't mention the feeling of eyes on my back when I walked the corridors. Didn't mention waking in the night with the absolute certainty that someone had been standing over my bed. Isabella's ghost was gone. The music box stayed silent. Whatever was haunting me now was very much alive. It was Luca who broke the fragile peace. "Miss Vanessa, why does Uncle Giorgio look at you like that?" We were in the garden, feeding the ducks again. I'd met Giorgio Longo, Tiziano's cousin and the family's new acting consigliere, twice. Both times, his smile had been warm, his manner impeccable. Both times, my skin had crawled. "Like what, sweetheart?" Luca scrunched his nose, thinking. "Like you're a puzzle he wants to break. Mama used to say that about Uncle Marco, that he looked at people like puzzles." My blood went cold. "Does Uncle Giorgio come to your room at night?" "No, but I heard him talking to someone on the phone. About you." Luca threw more bread to the ducks, oblivious to the panic rising in my chest. "He said you were a problem that needed solving. What does that mean?" Nothing, baby. Just grown-up talk. I stood, taking his hand. Let's go inside now, okay? I needed to tell Tiziano. Now. But when we entered through the garden doors, Giorgio was waiting. Vanessa, just the woman I was looking for. His smile was perfect, practiced. Tiziano asked me to give you this revised contract for the remaining week, minor adjustments to the terms. He held out an envelope. I took it reflexively, my mind racing. Tiziano hadn't mentioned any revisions. We'd signed everything 2 weeks ago. Thank you, I managed. I'll review it and... He needs it back today. Lawyers, you know how they are. Giorgio's eyes, so like Tiziano's in color but empty of warmth, tracked Luca. Why don't you run along to Signora Lella, Piccolo? I need to discuss boring adult things with Miss Vanessa. Luca's hand tightened around mine. I want to stay with Miss Vanessa. Luca! Giorgio's voice sharpened. I said go. It's okay, sweetheart. I crouched down, whispering in his ear. Go find your papa. Tell him I need to see him right away. Can you do that? Luca nodded and scampered off, looking back once with worried eyes. The moment he was gone, Giorgio's smile vanished. You've been a busy little mouse, haven't you? He stepped closer, backing me against the wall. Digging up old letters, helping put Marco away, playing mother to Tiziano's broken son. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. Marco was sloppy, emotional. I'm neither. His hand came up, fingers trailing down my cheek. I jerked away, but there was nowhere to go. You found Elena's letters? But did you find the journal? The real one, with 30 years of family business? My silence was answer enough. Giorgio laughed, cold and empty. Marco turned it over to the police, the fool. Thought it would buy him leniency. But there's a second journal, Vanessa. One that documents everything, including transactions your precious Tiziano authorized himself. You're lying. Am I? Why do you think Isabella really had to die? Not for her father's old crimes, but for discovering what her husband had become. He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. Tiziano is just as dirty as the rest of us. And when you find out, when you look at him with disgust instead of those pathetic hard eyes, he'll break. And that's when I'll take everything he has. He'll never believe you. He won't have to. I have proof. Documents, recordings. Giorgio pulled back, his smile returning. I was going to wait, let you grow closer, make it hurt more when the truth came out. But you're too smart, asking too many questions. So I'm accelerating the timeline. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. My own voice filled the hallway. Does Uncle Giorgio come to your room at night? And Luca's response. He said you were a problem that needed solving. But the audio was edited, cut together to sound like I was coaching Luca to lie about Giorgio, like I was trying to frame him. Clever, isn't it? By tomorrow, Tiziano will hear this. He'll think you're manipulating his son, trying to turn the family against each other for money. Giorgio pocketed the phone. And when he throws you out, and he will, you'll disappear. Quietly. Permanently. Tiziano will know it's fake. Will he? He's trusted people before. Marco, Isabella. Look how that turned out. Giorgio straightened his cuffs. You have until tonight to leave on your own. Take the money you've earned and run. Or stay and find out what happens to women who threaten the Longo family. He walked away, whistling. I stood there, shaking, the envelope crumpled in my fist. Inside wasn't a contract. It was a single piece of paper with an address and a time. Tonight, midnight, and a message in block letters. Come, alone or Luca pays the price. I found Signora Lella in the kitchen. I need you to stay with Luca tonight. Don't let him out of your sight. Don't trust Giorgio." Her weathered face went pale. "Miss Stotts, what's happening?" "I don't know yet, but if something happens to me, if I don't come back, you tell Tiziano everything. About Giorgio, about the threats, about the recording, everything. You can't go alone. I have to." I gripped her hands. "Promise me. Luca's safety comes first." She nodded, tears in her eyes. I returned to my room and found Tiziano waiting, his expression thunderous. "Luca said you needed to see me urgently. Then he said something about Uncle Giorgio being mean. What happened?" I should have told him everything. The threats, the recording, the midnight meeting. But all I could think about was Giorgio's words. Documents, recordings, proof that Tiziano is just as dirty as the rest. What if it was true? What if the man I was falling for was just another monster in an expensive suit? "Nothing," I heard myself say. "Just a misunderstanding. Luca's imagination." Tiziano studied me for a long moment. "You're lying. I'm tired. It's been a difficult few weeks. Vanessa, I need to rest. Please." He looked like he wanted to argue, to push, to demand the truth. Instead, he nodded stiffly and left, closing the door with careful control. I waited until his footsteps faded. Then I pulled out the paper with the address and began to plan. Midnight. Alone. To save Luca and discover the truth. Even if the truth destroyed everything. I slipped out at 11:30 when the villa had fallen into watchful silence. The address Giorgio had given me led to the old textile district, a warren of abandoned warehouses near the river where my mother had once worked. The irony wasn't lost on me. Everything circled back to her, to the choices she'd made, the secrets she'd kept. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, its windows dark and broken like missing teeth. I approached slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run. But the note had been clear. Come alone, or Luca pays the price. I couldn't risk it. Wouldn't. The door was unlocked. Inside, the space opened into a vast emptiness. Concrete floors, rusted machinery, moonlight filtering through holes in the roof. And in the center, illuminated by a single battery-powered lantern, stood Giorgio. He wasn't alone. 3 men flanked him, faces I didn't recognize but whose intent was clear in the guns held loosely at their sides. And bound to a chair behind them, a gag in her mouth and terror in her eyes, was Signora Lella. "You came," Giorgio said, sounding genuinely pleased. "I wasn't certain you would. Most people value their own lives more than keeping promises. Let her go. Your fight is with me. My fight is with everyone who threatens what I've built." He gestured to one of his men, who produced a laptop. "You wanted the truth about Tiziano? Let me show you." The screen flickered to life, displaying financial records, transaction logs, signatures. Tiziano's name appeared again and again, authorizing payments, approving deals, moving money through shell companies. 2 years ago, Tiziano took over operations his father started. Money laundering primarily, some drug trafficking. Nothing too distasteful, you understand. Just business. Giorgio's smile was serpentine. Isabella found out. Threatened to go to the authorities, to take Luca and disappear. So Marco handled it. My stomach churned. Tiziano didn't know. Didn't he? He signed off on the charity foundation months before Isabella died. The same foundation his father-in-law used for embezzlement, now repurposed for washing drug money. Giorgio closed the laptop. Marco acted on Tiziano's orders. Perhaps not explicitly, but the message was clear. Protect the business at all costs. You're lying. Tiziano loved Isabella. Love and business are separate things in this family. Surely you've learned that by now." He moved closer, his men shifting with him. "But here's the beautiful part. It doesn't matter what you believe, because Tiziano will never get the chance to explain." Ice flooded my veins. "What? Did you really think I'd let you leave here? You're the final loose end, Vanessa. You and the old woman both. By morning, you'll have disappeared, and I'll console my grieving cousin while positioning myself as Luca's primary guardian. Tiziano will know it was you. Will he? I'll be devastated. I'll suggest you ran away, took the money, couldn't handle the pressure. It happens all the time with opportunistic women." He nodded to his men. "Take them to the river. Make it look like an accident." The men moved forward. I backed away, my mind racing, looking for any escape. But we were surrounded, outgunned, and no one knew where I was. No one except... The warehouse door exploded inward. Tiziano came through like a force of nature, 6 armed men at his back, his face a mask of cold fury. "Step away from them, Giorgio. Now!" Giorgio's composure cracked. "Tiziano, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like you're threatening to kill the woman my son loves and my most loyal employee." Tiziano's gun came up, aimed directly at his cousin's head. "What am I missing?" "She knows too much. About Isabella, about the business. She's a liability. She's under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me." His eyes flicked to me just for a moment, and I saw the flash of relief before the ice returned. "Lower your weapons, or I paint this warehouse with your blood. Choose quickly." Giorgio's men hesitated, looking between their boss and Tiziano's superior force. One by one, their guns lowered. "You're making a mistake," Giorgio said, his voice tight with fury. "She'll destroy you. She'll find out everything and... I already know everything." The voice came from behind Tiziano. Luca stepped into view, his small hand clasped in Signora Lella's daughter's hand, a woman I'd never met but who radiated the same fierce protectiveness as her mother. And behind them came another figure, a boy, perhaps 8 years old, with Giorgio's eyes. "Uncle Giorgio?" The child's voice trembled. "Why is Nonna tied up?" Giorgio's face went white. "Matteo, what are you... You're supposed to be in boarding school." "I came home for Nonna's birthday. I heard you on the phone tonight." The boy stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. "You said you were going to hurt people, that you were going to take Luca's papa's business. I told Papa Tiziano." The warehouse fell into stunned silence. Tiziano's expression shifted from fury to something more complex, pity perhaps, or disgust. "Your own son turned you in, Giorgio. That should tell you everything you need to know about the man you've become." "Matteo, you don't understand. I understand you're mean, like Uncle Marco was mean." The boy ran to Signora Lella's daughter, sobbing. "I don't want to be like you." Giorgio lunged, not for the child, but for me. He moved with desperate speed, grabbing me and pressing a knife to my throat before anyone could react. "Everyone back! I walk out of here or she dies." I felt the blade's cold kiss against my skin, smelled his fear sweat, heard Tiziano's sharp inhale. "Let her go, Giorgio." Tiziano's voice was eerily calm, but his gun never wavered. "This ends badly for you either way. Make it worse, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you regret it." "You'll let me leave. You'll give me 24 hours. Then you can have her back." "No deal." The knife pressed harder. I felt a trickle of blood run down my neck. "Then she dies." The shot rang out before he finished the sentence. Giorgio's grip went slack. The knife clattered to the floor. He crumpled, a red bloom spreading across his shoulder. Not fatal, but incapacitating. Tiziano lowered his gun, his hand perfectly steady. I said no deal. I collapsed to my knees, shaking. Tiziano was there in an instant, his arms around me, checking the shallow cut on my neck with gentle fingers. You're okay. You're safe. I've got you. Luca, where's... Outside in the car with my most trusted men. I would never bring him into danger. He pulled back, his storm cloud eyes searching mine. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you come here alone? He said he had proof. That you were involved in everything. The money laundering, Isabella's death. And you believed him? I didn't know what to believe. Tears spilled over. I just knew I had to protect Luca. Something softened in his expression. He cupped my face with both hands, thumbs wiping away tears. The documents he showed you were real. I did authorize those transactions, but I didn't know what they were for until after Isabella died. My father set up the systems. I inherited them without understanding what I was signing. But when I discovered the truth, I started dismantling everything. It's taken 2 years, but the Longo family is going legitimate. That's why Marco killed Isabella. Not because she found out, but because she demanded immediate action and he knew it would collapse the empire he'd helped build. He pressed his forehead to mine, his breath ragged. I should have told you. Should have trusted you with the whole truth. But I was afraid. Afraid you'd look at me the way you did when Giorgio showed you those files. Afraid you'd run. I'm not running. No, you're not. He smiled, small and broken and real. You ran toward danger instead. For my son. You're either very brave or very stupid. Both, probably. He laughed, an actual laugh, rusty from disuse. Then his expression turned serious. This isn't over. Giorgio was working with others. Until we root them all out. I know, but we'll handle it together. Together! He said it like a promise, like a prayer. Behind us, the police arrived to take Giorgio away. Signora Lella was freed, embracing her daughter and grandson. And through it all, Tiziano kept his arms around me, anchoring me to safety. When we finally stepped out into the cold night air, Luca was waiting by the car, the stuffed lion clutched tight. He ran to us, and I scooped him up, feeling Tiziano's arm come around us both. Can we go home now? Luca asked, his voice small. Yes, Piccolo, Tiziano said, kissing his son's head. We can go home. And as we drove through Milan's sleeping streets, I realized home wasn't a place anymore. It was this, them, a broken family becoming whole. The hospital room was too bright, too white, too sterile. I sat beside Tiziano's bed, watching his chest rise and fall with mechanical precision, surrounded by beeping monitors and IV lines and the antiseptic smell of almost death. It had happened so fast. We'd thought it was over. Giorgio arrested, his associates being rounded up, the family finally bleeding out its poison. We'd returned to the villa at dawn, exhausted but together, believing we were safe. We were wrong. The attack came at breakfast. A final loyalist, one of Giorgio's men who'd slipped through the initial arrests, broke through security. He'd come for Luca, revenge in his eyes and a gun in his hand. Tiziano had put himself between the bullet and his son. The man was dead now, shot by security before he could fire again. But the damage was done. Miss Vanessa? I looked up to find Luca in the doorway, his stuffed lion dragging on the floor, Signora Lella's hand on his shoulder. His eyes were red-rimmed, his small face pale. Can I see Papa? I made room on the chair, pulling him into my lap. He curled against me, staring at his father's unconscious form with the kind of fear no 5-year-old should know. Is Papa going to die like Mama did? The question shattered me. No, sweetheart. The doctors say he's going to be fine. He just needs to rest. You promise? I couldn't. I wouldn't make promises I might not be able to keep. Instead, I held him tighter and whispered, "Your Papa is the strongest man I know. He's fought too hard to leave us now." Hours blurred together. Doctors came and went with updates. The bullet had missed major organs. The surgery was successful. He just needed time to wake up. I nodded through their explanations, holding Luca, refusing to move from Tiziano's side. Signora Lella brought food I couldn't eat. She brought changes of clothes I barely registered. She took Luca for brief walks so he wouldn't be entirely confined to this room that smelled of fear and antiseptic. But always, I stayed. On the second day, I finally spoke to him. "You don't get to do this," I whispered, my hand wrapped around his. "You don't get to save us and then leave. That's not how this works." His fingers didn't move. The monitors kept their steady rhythm. "Luca needs you. He's already lost his mother. He can't lose you too." My voice cracked. "And I need you, which is terrifying and stupid because I've known you for 3 weeks, and I shouldn't feel like my world is ending just because you won't wake up." Still nothing. "I never told you about my mother." "Not really. She died alone, in a hospital not unlike this one, because I was too proud to drop out of school and be with her at the end. I chose my future over her present, and I've regretted it every day since." Tears streamed down my face unchecked. "So I'm choosing differently now. I'm choosing you and Luca and this impossible family we've become. But you have to choose too, Tiziano. You have to choose to wake up, to fight, to stay." I laid my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady, strong, stubborn as the man himself. "Please," I whispered, "please don't leave us." He woke on the 3rd day. I dozed off in the chair, Luca asleep across my lap, both of us exhausted from keeping vigil. A sound pulled me from restless dreams, a rustle of sheets, a sharp intake of breath. Tiziano's eyes were open, confused and unfocused, searching the room. "Don't move," I said quickly, gently shifting Luca aside. "You're in the hospital. You were shot. The doctor said—" "Luca!" His voice was rough, barely a whisper. "Where's— Right here! He's safe! You saved him!" I leaned over him, my hand finding his. "How do you feel?" "Like I was shot." A ghost of his usual dry humor. His eyes focused on me, sharpening. "You stayed." "Of course I stayed." "Your contract ended yesterday. 21 days. You could have taken your money and left." "Is that really what you want to talk about right now?" His hand tightened around mine. "I heard you. When you were talking to me. All of it." My breath caught. "Tiziano, you said you needed me. I was emotional. You were unconscious. Say it again." His storm cloud eyes held mine, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. "Say it when I can. Answer." The monitors beeped. Somewhere down the hall a nurse laughed, and in that sterile hospital room, I made a choice that terrified me more than Marco's gun or Giorgio's knife or any danger I'd faced. "I need you," I whispered. "Both of you, Luca and you. You've become my family, and I don't want to leave." "Then don't." He tried to sit up, winced, and I pressed him back down gently. "Stay. Not as an employee, not for money or obligation. Stay because you want to. I'm homeless, uneducated. I have nothing to offer you. You gave my son his voice back. You solved a 5-year-old murder. You faced down my cousin with more courage than trained soldiers." He reached up, his hand cupping my cheek despite the pain it clearly caused. "You gave me something I thought died with Isabella. Hope. This is crazy. We barely know each other. I know you hum when you think no one's listening. I know you arrange Luca's toys by color when you're anxious. I know you take your coffee black because you can't afford to waste money on milk, even though you hate the taste. You've been watching me. I've been falling in love with you." The words hung between us raw and honest, which is inconvenient and complicated and probably too soon, but there it is. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Papa?" We both turned. Luca stood beside the bed, sleep-rumpled and wide-eyed, staring at his father like he'd seen a miracle. "Hey, Piccolo." Tiziano's voice softened. "Sorry I scared you." Luca burst into tears, climbing carefully onto the bed and burrowing into Tiziano's side. "I thought you were gone, like Mama. I thought, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Tiziano held his son with one arm, reached for me with the other. "We're not going anywhere, any of us." I let him pull me down, carefully mindful of his injuries, until we were a tangle of arms and tears and healing. A family born from tragedy and choice, and love too stubborn to be denied. "Miss Vanessa has to stay," Lucas said into his father's chest. "Forever. You have to make her stay." Tiziano's eyes met mine over Luca's head. "What do you say, Miss Stotts? Think you can handle forever with the Longos?" I thought about my mother, who'd fled this family to save herself. About Isabella, who'd stayed and paid the price. About all the paths that had led me to this moment. The loss, the grief, the impossible coincidences that felt more like fate. "I think," I said slowly, "that 30 nannies failed because Luca never wanted a nanny." Tiziano smiled. "He wanted you. And what do you want? You. Here. Always." He pulled me closer. "I want to watch you finish your education. I want to see you teach. I want Luca to call you Mom without it being a ghost's echo. I want breakfast together and arguments about nothing and a life that's boring and beautiful and real. That's a lot of wants. I'm a man who gets what he wants." I laughed through tears. Arrogant. Determined. He kissed my forehead, gentle and reverent. "Say yes, Vanessa. Stay. Build this family with me. Be my partner, my conscience, my home." Outside the window, dawn was breaking over Milan, the same city where I'd once slept in train stations, invisible and alone. The same city where my mother had fled from the Longos decades ago, but I wasn't my mother, and Tiziano wasn't his father. We were writing our own story now. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes to all of it." Luca cheered, exhausted but delighted. Tiziano closed his eyes, finally allowing himself to rest now that we were safe, his family complete. And I sat there in that hospital room, holding them both, and felt peace for the first time since my mother died. 3 months later, the garden was exactly as I'd imagined it. All white roses and string lights, intimate and perfect under a Tuscan sunset. I stood at the edge of the aisle, wearing a simple dress of ivory silk, my mother's pearl necklace at my throat, and Isabella's blessing in my heart. The music box lullaby played softly, not haunted now, but cherished. At the altar, Tiziano waited in a charcoal suit, his shoulders still healing, but his eyes clear and sure. Beside him, Luca stood as ring-bearer, his stuffed lion replaced for the day with a small pillow. Signora Lella handed me my bouquet, tears in her eyes. "Your mother would be so proud." "So would Isabella," I said, and meant it. I walked down the aisle toward my impossible future. A mafia boss who'd chosen love over legacy, a broken boy who'd taught me courage, a family built on ghosts and grace and second chances. When Tiziano took my hand, his smile was the sun breaking through clouds. "Ready, Miss Stotts?" "Ready, Mr. Longo." We promised forever in a garden where two women had once carved their friendship into stone. We promised family in the shadow of tragedy, transformed into triumph. And when we kissed, I swear I felt two presences with us, my mother and Isabella, two friends reunited beyond death, finally at peace. Luca tugged my dress. "Mama?" The words still took my breath away. "Yes, sweetheart." "Are we a real family now?" I looked at Tiziano, who looked at me, and we both looked at our son. "We've always been a real family," Tiziano said, "from the moment you called her mom on that street. We just didn't know it yet." As sunset painted the villa gold, we walked back down the aisle together. Three people who'd found each other through impossible circumstances and chosen to stay. No more ghosts, no more running, no more fear. Just love, fierce and fragile and forever ours.